Okay, I think we're ready to begin then. We need our city attorney. We need her to be in her chair. And we've got Counselor Chavez is remote and Counselor Romero Worth is remote, but they're both with us. So with that, I will call the meeting to order. And we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Counselor Lee Garcia. Salute to the New Mexico flag led by Counselor Chavez from a distance. And then a invocation and remembrances begun by Councilwoman Villarreal. Please rise.
I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico and the Zia symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
For our spiritual reflections and in honor of Juneteenth, which is right around the corner, I'm going to read a poem by Langston Hughes, who was an African-American poet, social activist, novelist, and playwright, among many accomplishments. And the poem is called I Look at the World. I look at the world from awakening eyes in a black face, and this is what I see. This fenced off narrow space assigned to me. I look then at the silly walls through dark eyes in a dark face, and this is what I know. That all these walls oppression builds will have to go. I look to my own body with eyes no longer blind, and I see that my own hands can make the world that's in my mind. Then let's hurry, comrades, the road to find. And for remembrances, I want to take the opportunity to honor the life of Glennis Carl, who recently passed. Those of you that might know Glennis, she devoted her life to easing the suffering of those who had few healthcare and hospice options due to income and other limitations. And Glennis, who was named one of 10 who made a difference in 2017, definitely made a difference in our community through her leadership with Coming Home Connection, a nonprofit that she started to provide free and reduced cost care for those near the end of their lives. And then Scott's House, which is a free hospice option. And just knowing Glennis she was one of the sweetest and most soft-spoken leaders who worked diligently to support the lives of others, especially the underserved. And I wish her peace, and may she now rest easy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Others who have remembrances, let me just see a hand raised. Councilor Lindell.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to remember my friend Liz Raspolik. Liz was in the second or third Peace Corps class. And from there, she went on to work for the State Department and became worked with the diplomat corps. She started out in Lyon, went to Paris, went to Seoul, went to Ethiopia, 2 different tours in China, and then to numerous places after that. And Liz left us about 10 days ago, and she was delightful to be around. And she read people as well as anybody I ever met. And I think that she probably had a lot of practice at that, sitting at the consulate, listening to people tell her stories. She was delightful to be around, and I will miss her tremendously. And she was a great friend to Santa Fe, did a lot of volunteer work here with the museum. So we lost a good friend in Liz.
Thank you. Others? Let's take a minute and remember those who've just been mentioned and those who we've lost through COVID, through other personal tragedy. Let's remember the people in Uvalde who we're still thinking about even today and will continue to carry with us. Let's take a minute together. Thank you, everybody. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Yes, Mayor, I can. And I just want to make a quick note that, as you all can see, this is our first Zoom meeting. I'm hoping it goes smoothly, but I will also be calling roll call virtually for the first time. So just as we navigate this, please, lots of staff has been working on it. So with that, Mayor Weber.
Present.
Councillor Cassett. Here. Councillor Chavez.
Here.
Councillor Lee Garcia.
Here.
Councillor Michael Garcia.
Present.
Councillor Lindell.
Here.
Councillor Rivera.
Here.
Councillor Romero Worth.
Here.
Councilwoman Villarreal.
Present.
You have a quorum, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda, please?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve and we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On the consent agenda, Madam Clerk, you have 2 items, I believe, that have been removed. If you could read those out loud so everybody who is watching and listening knows which items have been taken off of the consent calendar, please.
Yes, Mayor Weber, we had 2 items removed from the consent agenda. The first was request for approval of the May 25th governing body meeting minutes. This was by Counselor Garcia for recusal,
And that would be item which?
9A.
Okay. And the second?
Is 9F. It's request for approval of the collective bargaining agreement between the City of Santa Fe and the Santa Fe Police Officers Association for fiscal year 23. And that was pulled by Counselor Lindell.
Thank you. So can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll?
Counselor Cassett,
Yes.
Counselor Chavez,
Yes.
Counselor Lee Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Michael Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell,
Yes.
Counselor Rivera,
Yes.
Counselor Romero Worth,
Yes.
Councilwoman Villarreal,
Yes.
Mayor Weber.
Yes,
Consent agenda has been approved.
thank you. That brings us, Madam Clerk, to item 8A. If you could introduce that to everyone who is watching and listening.
Yes, Mayor. Item 8A is the fiscal year audit status update. Ricky Bejarano, our interim assistant finance director, is giving that presentation.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you. Thank you, City Clerk. There's not a whole lot of status update with everything else that's been going on. We have yet to hear from the State Auditor's Office. We submitted the initial plan that they requested, addressing certain items that they had sent and requesting a plan in us meeting those items. That was submitted June 20th, but we expect to hear shortly on what the next steps are forward. In the meanwhile, we're still working towards re-reviewing a number of items that we thought were ready for audit. And we're also moving forward with the 22, getting caught up on the accounting and any things that seem problematic with the 22 year, still hoping to submit the 22 on time. With that, I stand for questions.
Are there questions about the audit presentation from the governing body? Yes, go ahead, Councilor Michael Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Bejarano. Just got a quick question for you. I think it was maybe during the last meeting. I can't recall. There was a list of 26 items that our former auditor had said, complete these and we'll consider taking back you as a client. Do you know where we're at with those 26 items? Are we, out of the 26, how many being accomplished, and when we potentially might anticipate completing that list of 26 items?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Garcia, yes, where we're at is we responded to each item, giving a date. We felt that across the board, 7/15 was a comfortable date for us to go back, re-review the items that they have found effective. We're working through those throughout the list. I would say of the 20, there were actually 27 items, but 26 and 27 were acknowledgements that we agreed that when CLA, before CLA comes back, they would have to review what we've submitted and make a determination as to whether they will then pick the audit back up. And we agreed to pay for that assessment, and then also that we would pay for any work that had been up to that point. And I think we issued a couple of checks today. We were billed. We've got one more payment, so we're up to date on that. Of the 26 items, I feel comfortable in saying that the items, I can go backwards and say the items that are left are the trial balance. That needs to be re-examined completely for all accounts. We have approximately 5,000 accounts on the GL, and we're going back and re-reviewing the reconciliations that had been done. And cash is obviously the biggie. We've made a lot of progress with cash going on a one-on-one. The problematic things for cash were accounting. I think I've talked about this before, accounting for the revenues. And we did a one-to-one match on deposits. And at this point, we're down significantly from the 4.6 million to we're hovering between 800,000 and 1.1 million. As you go along, you might find things to correct, but then other things pop and it can go back and forth. And at this point, I'm comfortable to say that what we're looking for are accounting errors, mispostings that so far have not reduced cash balances. So the money that stated that was in the bank is legitimately there. And now it's just a matter of correcting accounting errors.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Bejarano. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So the 7/15 date, that's the anticipation of us completing all those action items?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Garcia, yes, we'll submit what we have. Then we'll have to contract, do a small contract with CLA to come back and review it to make a determination as to whether they want to pick up the audit again. If not, then we'll have to acquire another auditor.
Okay, thank you. And I guess my follow-up to that is how comfortable are we that we'll meet the expectations of CLA taking us back as a client, and are we looking at a plan B potentially if they say, sorry, we just can't move forward? And because I don't want us to be in the position where CLA says, sorry, we can't move forward, and then we have to spend another period of time looking for a new auditor. So is that any contingency planning taking place, or?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Garcia, yes, we are definitely, we've got a contingency plan. There is no guarantee that CLA will take us back, not necessarily because of the audit itself. It's because of their schedule. They've got a large, they've bid on and acquired a number of large audits. One of them is the city of Albuquerque. That's a huge, huge audit. So it's going to depend on where they are, excuse me, at that point in time. And that's the only thing that could possibly make them not be able to perform the audit. Our plan B, I believe it's legal counsel's opinion, and they can speak to this, but I believe we can then do an emergency procurement, pick an auditor and get them going. That would be of the same caliber. That's not definite, but my understanding is that that's a possibility. Otherwise, we will have the RFP ready to go for the audit if we have to RFP. And that's what would take more time.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Bejarano. I really appreciate the update, and wish you all the best as you're working towards checking off items off that list.
Thank you.
No more questions. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other questions?
Mayor,
Yes, Counselor, I didn't see your hand. My apologies. Yes.
yeah, I don't know how this works, so we're all in uncharted new territory, so thank you.
Feel free.
I just wanted to let the public know that the Finance Committee at its next meeting will be reviewing the work plan in detail. And I hope by then, our next meeting is the 20th of this month, that we will also have responses from the state auditor, and we'll be able to go over those as well. So there is greater detail coming forward, and the Finance Committee will be looking at this. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor. Thanks for speaking up. And Counselor Chavez, if I don't notice that your hand is up in the future, please do what Counselor Mayorworth just did and call for my attention.
All right, thank you, Mayor.
Very good. Mr. Bejarano, do you have a minute to for me to ask a few more questions?
Mr. Mayor, yes, you're my boss, so I have no option.
Well, Mr. Blair is your boss, but thank you. Let me just run through a couple things, because I think this is really an opportune moment to review what the progress is on the audit. So you mentioned that we have not heard back from the Office of the State Auditor. You were requested to produce a plan. When did that go to OSA?
We submitted that and an additional trial balance analysis to the State Auditor's Office the afternoon of June 20th, Friday.
Okay, so we're hoping we will get feedback soon.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
And we're waiting for what are we anticipating will be to Counselor Garcia's question, what do we need from the state auditor in order to move forward in a smooth fashion?
Mr. Mayor, at this point, we're at somewhat of a standstill on the audit itself. What we're really in need of, once they determine that the audit can continue based on the 26, 27 items, we need to be able to know if CLA is going to pick the audit back up. If that's the case, then they'll want to review the 26, 27 items and determine whether they want to move forward as a firm. Otherwise, it's either an emergency procurement or an RFP process. But we're essentially at a standstill until we hear from the state auditor's office.
Okay, and if I'm not mistaken, it's worth taking a minute here. In addition to the plan that you submitted, which was asked for by item, you were very clear in adding an addendum of already accomplished items, numbering quite a few things that have not gotten the same level of interest as the items that needed to be done. Do you want to give us a quick overview of how many items were on that list and the kinds of things that were itemized as having already been accomplished? Because we're not playing a zero-sum game here.
Now, Mr. Mayor, if I may, the 26 items essentially are categories that could lead to hundreds of items. For example, the cash reconciliation could lead to actually thousands of items that have been reconciled. The trial balance in and of itself, I mentioned we hold about 5,000 accounts, which is inclusive of the fund. We have separate funds, and each one of those funds is a self-balancing set of accounts. So it may appear somewhat repetitive, but each one of those has to be reconciled. We've got the schedule of expenditures of federal awards, which is a whole different realm that has to be audited separately that we're working on. We believe we'll be ready by the 15th for sure, but at this point, we're reevaluating some of those items. Capital assets essentially is good to go. Accounts receivable and accounts payable. Our inner funds, there is a lot of activity between our various funds, and those have to be accounted for. That reconciliation's been done. Not the least of which also is the COVID relief funds. Those will be audited essentially separately because those are special grants, and those have to be balanced out. We are re-reviewing. We have two contractors working on that portion, one solely on the COVID relief funds and the other on the remaining federal grants. Those two contractors will be on site Friday and Monday, and we're going to be re-reviewing everything and ensure that by July 15th, we're good to go. Audits a lot of times start with the federal expenditures. It's a good place to start. And there's also payroll. There will be significant audit of payroll. We believe we're ready. And those are the primary topics. But I want to emphasize, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, sir.
I want to emphasize that each one of these, well, it's actually 25 items. The 26th and 27th item were contractual issues with the audit firm itself. But the 25 items that come before those can lead to hundreds, if not thousands, of other transactions that feed into those items.
Thank you. You mentioned the schedule of expenditure of the CFA. Can you give us a quick update on how that item pertains to the completion of our audit prep?
Yes, the schedule of expenditures of federal awards is it's almost a separate audit within the audit. We refer to it as a single audit. It means that what they'll do is pick major programs, and those programs are audited as if they're a whole separate audit, hence the term single audit in and of themselves. So everything that's done citywide is done specifically for those grants. We know COVID will be one of them. We know airport will be another, and then most likely CDBG.
Okay.
But that's a determination that the auditors make, and those are essentially three separate audits that occur in addition to the audit of the city citywide.
Another part of the conversation with the state auditor's office had to do with positions that we're seeking to fill in order to make sure that we are staffed up to really not only meet this audit, but future financial requirements. Do you want to give us a quick update on where we are with those positions that we're seeking to fill in the finance department?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the controller position, which is critical, that essentially becomes my right hand, right, left. The cash control position, that's the treasury officer. Both of those closed today, and we should be receiving lists of eligible people to interview. We hope to have that filled within, or at least have a selection made within a couple of weeks. The grants manager, we've decided that we've gotten very few applicants on the grants manager. That needs to be reviewed. It may be an issue of pay or how it's advertised. The compliance officer is being created. And that I mentioned last meeting that that's a citywide position, ensuring that we're compliant across the board. And then we also will be advertising for a payroll officer.
Last question. As we're completing this piece of work, we're all looking forward to the upcoming audit. Can you give us an overview of steps that are being taken so that the audit will be on time?
Mr. Mayor, yes, we are. Well, first and foremost, there's an RFP that has been issued for the 22-year to contract. I think I've already mentioned to this body that this go around, we won't be issuing 4 separate contracts. It'll be one general contract. And if the contractor wishes, they will have the latitude to subcontract, subject to our permission of who they're subcontracting to. That will close June 24th. So that will help us tremendously. As soon as that's issued, then as of July 1, the new fiscal year, because it's new fiscal year funding, then we intend to get going immediately. And so we'll have the 2 audits or the audit prep going simultaneously. And in addition to that, we already have the contractors that are already on board beginning to work towards setting things up for the 22-year. One example that's critical is we have Beasley Mitchell are essentially establishing our financial statements, which have always been done by the auditors. This time they'll be done by the contractors, Beasley Mitchell, and they'll be setting up not only for 21, but for 22 as well. I will mention that CLA was generous enough to provide us the pro forma financial statements with all the links to these are dozens of spreadsheets that feed into our financials. And it's their work. It was generous on their part. Auditors don't have to submit to you their work papers. They did so that we could get ahead on the 21 and 22 years on those financial statements. There are numerous of other items, but those are the main things that we have.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions? Really appreciate the update on not just the work underway, but the bigger picture of things that have already been accomplished and the preparation for next year. Thank you for the presentation. Madam Clerk, there was an issue raised about a item on the agenda that may or may not have actually gone through the right committees. Where are we on that?
Mayor, oh, sorry.
I'm not sure your mic's on.
There we go. Mayor, you are correct. It was brought to our attention that one of the items was added, we're not sure how, to the agenda, but it has not gone through the committee process, and it also does not have packet. So I would like to recommend that we have a motion to reconsider the consent calendar and then move a consent agenda, excuse me, and remove item D from that.
Okay, so item D is the rogue item that actually did not make it onto the agenda in an appropriate manner. So we would need a motion to reconsider the consent agenda and a separate motion to remove it, or one motion altogether, separate motions.
I move to reconsider the consent agenda.
City attorney's giving me hand signals here.
Mayor Weber, Council Viadrell. I was going to suggest maybe probably gonna be three motions. One to reconsider the consent agenda, one to remove the item, then you're going to probably approve the consent agenda again.
As
Yeah,
amended.
As amended.
All
I
right.
guess you're going to remove the item for the purpose of sending it to committees, right?
Correct.
Like that. Yeah.
So there's a motion the first motion is to reconsider the consent agenda. There's a motion from Councilwoman Villarreal who spotted this problem. Thank you for your eagle eye. And there was a second. Is there any discussion? If not, Madam Clerk, is that a roll call vote?
Yes, it's a roll call vote. Just to confirm, Counselor Cassett, you were the second.
Yes, Counselor
Perfect.
Cassett seconded it.
Yes. Counselor Chavez,
Yes.
Counselor Lee Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Michael Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell,
Yes.
Counselor Rivera, Counselor Romero Worth,
Yes.
Councilwoman Villarreal,
Yes.
Counselor Cassett,
Yes.
Mayor Weber.
Yes.
Motion has been approved.
So now I'll entertain a motion to remove item D and to send it to committee. Is there a motion to that effect?
I move to remove item D and send it back to committees or
Through the
reroute it.
committee process?
committee, since it hasn't been heard in committee yet.
Is there a second?
Second.
Counselor Lindell has provided the second. Is there a discussion? Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
Yes. Counselor Lee Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Michael Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell,
Yes.
Counselor Rivera,
Yes.
Counselor Romero Worth,
Yes.
Councilwoman Villarreal,
Yes.
Counselor Cassett. Yes. Counselor Chavez,
Yes.
Mayor Weber.
Yes.
Motion has been approved.
And the last motion we need then is to approve the consent agenda as amended.
I move to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
And there's a second. And is there discussion?
Mr. Mayor, just
Yes,
to
Counselor.
clarify, Madam City Attorney, that includes the items that were previously removed.
Mayor Weber, Counselor, it should because those were removed before we considered the original motion, right? Is that accurate?
I think so as part of the original
Okay,
motion.
then yes.
Okay, good
I
clarification.
think you could make it clear as amended from the earlier as well. Yeah,
As amended and amended.
Right, as amended twice, yes.
Yes.
I was going to say that. So as amended,
Great.
as amended.
As amended, as amended. And you're not being redundant. Thank you. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll?
Counselor Michael Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell,
Yes.
Counselor Rivera,
Yes.
Counselor Romero Worth,
Yes.
Councilwoman Villarreal,
Yes.
Counselor Cassett,
Yes.
Counselor Chavez,
Yes.
Counselor Lee Garcia,
Yes.
Mayor Weber.
Yes.
Motion has been approved.
Great. Thank you, Councilwoman Villarreal, for spotting that. You got there in the nick of time. So that brings us, Madam Clerk, to item 9A, I believe.
Yes, item 9A is request for approval of the May 25th, 2022 regular governing body meeting minutes. And this was removed by Counselor Michael Garcia.
Counselor Garcia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was absent for the last meeting, so I would just like to abstain from approval of the minutes. So,
Move to
Anybody can-
approve.
Motion to approve and a second. Is there discussion? Madam Clerk?
Counselor Lindell,
Yes.
Counselor Rivera,
Abstain as I was also not present.
Counselor Romero Worth,
Yes.
Councilwoman Villarreal,
Yes.
Counselor Cassett,
Yes.
Counselor Chavez,
Yes.
Counselor Lee Garcia,
Yes.
Mayor Weber.
Yes.
Motion has been approved.
Thank you. I believe the next item is F, taken off of the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, if you could introduce that to us?
Yes, item F is a request for approval of the collective bargaining agreement between the City of Santa Fe and the Santa Fe Police Officers Association for fiscal year 23 in the amount of $2,251,013 for sworn and civilian bargaining unit employees. Deputy Chief Ben Valdez is here for questions, and this item was pulled by Counselor Lindell.
Okay, Counselor Lindell, you have the floor. I wonder if we want to entertain a motion before we go to a discussion.
Move to approve.
There a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve and we have a second. Counselor Lindell, you have the floor and you have Chief Valdez in front of you.
Thank you, Mayor. Deputy Chief Valdez, just a couple of things. I think this is a pretty progressive agreement between the city and the police union because it's always an issue and something that we talk about. I'd like for you to address the section so that because I've had questions and I'd like you to address so that folks that may be listening could understand the section on the take-home cars, because we had some changes in that.
Mayor Weber, Councilor Lindell, based on the discussion we had through the collective bargaining process with the Santa Fe Police Officers Association, we've agreed and had it ratified that we wanted to extend the take-home radius from 45 radius miles to 55. In doing so, we're also striking the 60 roadway mile distance that was previously in place. So it's now just one policy for that distance. What we're seeing with that distance are a few challenges. One, right before the meeting, as I've done with each of the committee meetings before it was presented, I checked to see what kind of housing is available in Santa Fe for 300,000 and 350,000, because that's within the range that our police officers that are with the department can afford. When I look at those two, again, here in Santa Fe, there's really not much that's available. For 300,000, there's a home up in Chupadero. The listing for that home up in Espinosa is no longer listed. And now there's a listing of a home there in Pojoaque that's available. But both those homes are both dilapidated, need some help. Not really something we're looking for. The other thing is with that distance, our recruiting pool. A lot of agencies are fighting for the same group of officers from surrounding agencies. And with our recommendation, it is similar to what's been seen with other law enforcement agencies. I'm aware that either the Gallup or the Grants Police Department extended their range to 60 radius miles because they're having a hard time with housing and finding the housing within the jurisdiction for their staff. Right now, we feel that it's a good time for us to make this request because we are making a lot of progress with transitioning our fleet to a hybrid fleet. In comparison to our current vehicles that we utilize now, we'll be seeing double the gas mileage. So right now that'd be kind of a budget neutral approach to it where we're seeing a cost savings. And even with the implementation of this request, we will still see that cost savings in there. And we can make use of that to, one, retain the staff that we do have currently that live outside the current authorized radius where they have to commute to a secured location, being a law enforcement agency. One of them is the Albuquerque Police Department's area command area, where they're being recruited in those parking lots. But it's also to allow staff who are currently in homes, whether it's here in Santa Fe or in other areas, to have a little bit of leeway. If they grow their family and they have to buy a home, they don't have to make the hard decision to say, well, if I have to purchase a home and I'm outside the take-home radius, I may have to look to work for a different law enforcement agency. This is going to be an immediate action plan for us. The other approach that's been recommended through a housing down payment assistance, that is a long-term plan. I know there's been a lot of work done by not only this council, but previous councils to try to keep more of our staff within the confines of the city limits. But as we've seen with the current housing situation and the challenges that exist here in Santa Fe, it still exists to be a challenge. So this is one way we're trying to, one, safely staff our personnel to make sure they have the people that they need within our organization to have enough numbers out there to respond to situations, whether they be our standard calls for service or an emergent situation. With this anticipated recommendation, I'm happy to share with you today that as of today, we have 10 lateral police officers in our background process that are going to be testing with us. If we can add all 10 of them, that would bring our numbers down significantly. That's not even including the cadets we onboarded last week or the lateral officer we onboarded last week as well. And this is just day one with this anticipated going to place. Many of these lateral officers, one of them that did join us last week was outside the take-home radius. Some of our staff, they're outside the take-home radius by, we're talking a few tenths of a mile. But if they have to make that hard decision on housing and providing for their family, it's going to be a tough decision for them to make, especially those that are early on in their career. Again, as we continue to explore vehicles that we will utilize for police use, I was having a conversation today about the use of electric vehicles. Will that be feasible for us? How can we try to implement those into our fleet? Because we want to be forward thinking. We want to make sure that we're doing good and also honoring what the city wants to do by being carbon neutral. But in this situation, housing continues to be a challenge. It is definitely being hard on our staff for them to find a place to live within the city, especially right now. The time for them to move on this would have been about 2 years ago before the pandemic. That would have been an optimal time for them to do so. So with the work that's being done by the council this year, we're recognizing that is a good start for a long-term solution to start to address this. Right now, we need those officers in our ranks within weeks. We can't wait for years for us to get that staff in. We want to get them onboarded now, and we're hoping that with the implementation of this housing assistance, that'll give them the opportunity to then say, hey, maybe I can shorten my commute and move to the city of Santa Fe and continue my service here when they decide to grow their family, rather than saying, well, I'm outside the radius, I may have to consider another law enforcement agency.
Thank you, Deputy Chief, for the thorough answer on that. I think that this is the kind of situation that the council is faced with where we have to make priorities. And our priority right now is to get our police department staffed, period. I don't think that, our first choice is to extend the take-home car radius. I don't think that it's ever been someone came in and said, geez, I want to do that. That's one of my legislative priorities that I want to get done. But we have to be pretty practical about this. And our number one priority is having more police officers and having us fully staffed. But in the big scheme of things, as you mentioned, it is important to have as many police officers in Santa Fe as possible. And that's why this council is committed this year, $750,000 in down payment assistance to first responders. We do that with purpose. And we do that with a goal in mind. And I hope that over time, those kinds of incentive programs will be able to collect data and see that they work. Because it's important to us to have as many officers here as possible. Probably everybody here would like to have a police car parked next door to them every night. So I just needed to pull this, make a comment on it, and look at the big scheme of things and where we're trying to go and what we're trying to do in terms of, we've made a commitment, we've talked about it a lot, about community policing. And this seems a little counterintuitive to what our big picture is, but we're not giving up on the big picture. This is kind of a stopgap that we know we need as many new officers on the force as possible, whether they're lateral, whether they're young men and women who go through the training academy. We want them to work with us. So thank you for the complete answer, and I'll yield the floor, Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Rivera, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chief Valdez. The first question I wanted to ask was just a follow-up on the vehicles. I read a study recently that said that hybrid vehicles, the ones that we're looking at, were actually less fuel efficient because of the weight of all the equipment that comes with a police department. Have there been any studies or any looks at that, or any discussions with the manufacturer about the amount of weight we would be carrying?
Mayor Weber, Councilor Rivera, based on the information we have right now, what we're seeing with a fully equipped, and that's including the equipment the officer carries for day-to-day work, we're getting about 25 to 26 miles per gallon versus 12 to 13 we're getting with our non-hybrid vehicles that are also pursuit rated. So based on the information that we have currently right now, we're very pleased with that. We'd like to see that increase with technology, but we're not seeing the issue where they're performing at the same rate as our current non-hybrid fleet.
Great, thank you. And then at Finance Committee, I asked a question about the overtime and you provided those numbers to me, but can you share them with everybody? So what's your current overtime and how much have you increased it?
If you give a minute, I'll have to go and pull it up so I can provide it to everyone. And I'll put the email that I sent you.
Okay. Maybe I could ask a question of finance maybe while we wait. I don't know if somebody from finance can come up.
Alexis?
And I have that question for you, Counselor, if you're ready.
Sure.
So we had an increase of $106,000 from the current fiscal year. In July 1 of this year, our total overtime budget will be 1.1 million for FY23.
Oh, 1.1 million for fiscal year 23?
Yes, sir.
And again, is that in anticipation of being fully staffed? I mean, with no vacancies, or is that based on current staffing levels?
That is based on current staffing. We added a percentage which worked out to be $106,000 because we anticipate there may be some increases in pay to account for that. But if we do get a fully staffed department, then we can potentially realize some cost savings there. And for that money, if it is allocated, not utilized, then if it's not needed, it's not utilized. But that's what we put in there in anticipation for our current staffing and if there's going to be also an increase as well.
I think there's an assumption that if you're fully staffed, that overtime would go down, but that's not necessarily the case because you still have all the special events. You still have FMLA, military leave, all those other things that need to be dealt with, right? So I don't think, I mean, we wouldn't expect like a crazy decrease in overtime budget, even if you were fully staffed. Would you agree with that?
But there would be some cost difference because some of the overtime activity that we do, we are reimbursed for that. And it goes back into that fund. But if we are fully staffed to provide our minimum staffing, that cost would go down. But due to the large events we have, like the markets, Fiestas, Zobra, those would usually stay about the same, within the same ballpark of what they were before. So there wouldn't be a huge decrease like, hey, we cut our overtime by half by being fully staffed. There would still be some overtime costs that would be incurred.
All right. And then Ms. Lutero, as increases are bargained and approved, that obviously affects other things like annual leave, sick leave, especially buyback upon retirement, things like that. Are those factored in automatically with the 16% increase?
Mayor Weber, Councilor Rivera, the way it's budgeted, it's all budgeted in salaries and benefits. We don't break out because particularly annual leave, we really can't predict how much annual leave we're going to pay out in any given year. But what really helps us out in the budget process is we tend to have enough vacancy. The vacancy rate tends to be high enough to cover those expenses. So up until this point, it's never been a problem.
All right, so the 16% increase that was just given or is about to be probably approved this evening, other things that are affected usually come from savings from somewhere else.
Usually it's not a large amount when you're talking about, for example, if somebody leaves and we have an annual leave payout. And especially in PD, there tends to be enough vacancy savings. We've historically haven't been fully staffed or fully staffed for the full year. There's just a natural turnover attrition rate. So as long as it sits within salaries and benefits, those kinds of things are paid out of it. It shouldn't be a problem. If it becomes a problem and we can see, oh, well, we're not going to have enough money, then we'll come to the council with a bar and propose increasing the budget to address those costs. But as far as when we budgeted the 16% increase, that includes salaries and benefits.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor. Other questions this time? I don't have a question, but I would like to take the opportunity to say a few things about this contract. First, I want to express my gratitude to the police union. I know you're here and I'm glad you're here and I appreciate your being here. I also appreciate the speed and positive work that was done to get this agreement made so that July 1, the officers will get their pay increases. It's really important to all of us. As Councilor Lindell said, our priority for the city right now, and I think in every city in America, is public safety and dealing with issues of crime that everywhere in the country are top of mind. And so your support, your help, your partnership in getting this contract done and done swiftly and in a way that will get the officers the 16% pay increase, I think is a signal of great collaboration inside our team. And I'm very grateful to you for that. I also want to express my gratitude for the letter that you all sent to me. It was the most gracious letter I think I've gotten in my time as mayor. And the fact that we're working together is an important partnership. I can tell you, I just got back from the U.S. Conference of Mayors, where there were mayors from cities all across the country of all sizes. And I can say without any fear of disagreement that the Santa Fe Police Department is the finest group of people in any city of any size. And also the work we're doing to prioritize the safety of our residents is a standout accomplishment. Across this country, there's a great deal of frustration that the teamwork isn't there. And our teamwork is loud, clear, and constant, and we all have the same goal in mind, which is to take care of our officers, to fill our vacancies. It's great news, Chief Valdez, that there are 10 potential candidates for lateral transfer into our department. That's a signal that people want to come work in Santa Fe. And it's a testimony to leadership of the department and of the union, that there are folks who are looking to come to our police department to keep our folks safe. And to Councilor Lindell's point, the more we can create a situation where our officers can live in the neighborhoods that they're keeping safe, the better we will all be. And so we have a partnership on that as well. But this contract, the 16% pay increase, is a signal of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for our officers and our intent to continue to put public safety as the highest priority in our city. So thank you for your partnership and all the work you do every single day on behalf of the people of Santa Fe. It is the most difficult job in the city right now, and you're doing an outstanding job. And to all of you who are here in blue tonight, many thanks to all of you and to everyone else in the department. We're very grateful to you. Any other comments or questions? If not, we have a motion on the floor. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll?
Yes, Councilor Rivera,
Yes.
Councilor Romero Worth,
Yes.
Councilwoman Villarreal,
Yes.
Councilor Cassett,
Yes.
Councilor Chavez,
Yes.
Councilor Lee Garcia,
Yes.
Councilor Michael Garcia,
Yes.
Councilor Lindell,
Yes.
Mayor Weber.
Yes,
Motion has been approved.
thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, I believe that takes us to action items and discussion agenda 10A on our agenda. Is your microphone working fully? I'm
There we
having
go.
a hard time hearing you. I'm sorry.
All right, do you want me to get closer? Okay, item 10A is consideration of a resolution sponsored by Mayor Weber. It's a resolution extending the duration of the mayor's emergency proclamation issued on June 6, 2022 by 18 days, expiring at noon on June 27th, 2022. This is pursuant to section 20-1.3C SFC 1987. And our city attorney, Aaron McSherry, is available for questions.
I would entertain a motion and then we'll take discussion.
Move to approve.
There a second?
Second.
We have a
Second.
Okay, I heard Counselor Garcia first. We have a motion to approve and we have a second. We also may have time to explore changes that are in this particular version, and I think the city attorney could perhaps address the things that are highlighted as this emergency version.
Mayor Weber, I'd be happy to. I think the overall context for this is that we're really trying to transition out of the emergency orders that have been in place for over 2 years now. So the hope is that this would be the last one. And a lot of the things that remain are really enacting transition language from where we've been to where we hope to go. For example, where the vaccination language is updated such that the city manager would be issuing a policy for new employees that would go into effect at the end of this order. So we would still be requiring vaccinations for new employees at the city of Santa Fe. It updates the encampment language to direct the city manager to take the necessary steps to transition from the existing encampment policy to a service-based strategy utilizing a designated city property. And that's a proposal that I think Ms. Ochoa has discussed, at least with one committee thus far, with the city councilors. It also removes the testing requirement for non-vaccinated employees. It updates the utilities moratorium on water shutoffs so that the utilities department will announce a schedule for notice regarding the lifting of the ongoing moratorium on water shutoffs to allow customers ample time to enter a payment plan and/or seek relief funds. Those are some of the primary changes. There's a continuing requirement that the notice to the public has been updated, as folks have probably noticed. We've simplified it so that if anyone in the public has either flu or COVID symptoms, we're asking them not to enter buildings, and we've listed the constituent services number for alternative access to services. And we're requesting that the public not enter facilities if they are having either of those symptoms. And this replaces the individual questions about individual characteristics of symptoms. It retains the language directing community development and the Department of Community Health and Safety to plan and host funding assistance clinics. And it retains language to me to propose language related to housing insecurity. I am meeting with various staff next week about some of the proposals I discussed with legal aid recently. And so we're going to propose a package on that subject. Those are the highlights. We updated obviously the numbers and the dates as well.
Thank you. Are there questions on this resolution? Councilwoman Villarreal.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick procedural. Explain again why it's extending only 18 days.
Yeah, good question.
Mayor Weber, Councilwoman Villarreal. The 18 days would bring us to the 27th, even though we are hoping this is the last proclamation. In case it is not, that makes it not to have required to have a special meeting should we need to issue a new one and extend. At this point, that is not anticipated.
So that date was essentially just to round out the month?
Mayor Weber, Councilwoman Villarreal, yes, it's to bring it to within 3 days of the next council meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Yeah, Councilor Lee Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. So can you clarify for me, where you state that it removes the testing requirements? Is that, so that's no longer an option for current employees?
Mayor Weber, Councilor Garcia, this just removes the requirement. The option is, I think, always available. I think we're trying to keep all of our offices well stocked with the rapid tests. I know I have a number in my office, and Mr. Williams, our emergency manager, has been making those available across the city. And so we are absolutely encouraging employees to stay home if they have symptoms and to get tested.
Okay, but it's not, I believe for current employees, if they are not vaccinated currently, they can still take the tests to be at work versus getting vaccinated. Okay, and it continues to require new employees to be vaccinated. Is that correct?
Mayor Weber, Councilor Garcia, that's correct. And that is just for new hires.
Okay, I've had some people reach out to me about that, especially for the youth, but you know, I'm hoping that this is the last one because I don't know how we are in regards to other municipalities and emergency orders and so on and so forth, but just like to get back to normal as quickly as possible. So thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Other questions or comments about this? Any hands up above there? No? Okay. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
And I'll scoot up. Counselor Romero Worth,
Yes.
Councilwoman Villarreal,
Yes.
Counselor Cassett,
Yes.
Counselor Chavez,
Yes.
Counselor Lee Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Michael Garcia,
Yes.
Counselor Lindell,
Yes.
Counselor Rivera,
Yes.
Mayor Weber.
Yes.
Motion has been approved.
Thank you. Could you take us to 10B then, please?
Sure. Item 10B is consideration of a resolution sponsored by Mayor Weber. It's a resolution extending the duration of the mayor's emergency proclamation responding to fire risks issued on June 7th, 2022 by 7 days, expiring at noon on June 17th, 2022. This is pursuant to SFCC 1987, Section 20-1.3C. And again, Attorney McSherry is available. I also believe our fire chief is here for any questions.
Thank you. Can I get a motion and then we'll have discussion?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve. We had a simultaneous second. I heard Counselor Lindell in my right ear. So the matter is in front of us. Madam City Attorney, do you want to do what you did with the previous item and just briefly describe what the contents of this represent?
Mayor Weber, I'm happy to. This one is very consistent with the last emergency order. The proposal is to extend it by 7 days, which is the maximum number of days that this type of order can be extended, which would bring us through the 17th. It does prohibit the use of certain city trails, the same ones the prior order restricted, and it still restricts the use of grills and cooking infrastructure at our city parks.
Thank you. Questions, comment? We do have the fire chief here if you wanted to ask him about this order. Counselor Rivera, speaking of fire chiefs.
Thank you. Not for the fire chief, but for our city clerk. I had brought up the idea of like a Friends of the Trails discussion that we had, and I had asked you to do some research on that to see if you could find anything from probably late 2000s when we did this, and just wondering if you had come up with anything.
Councilor Rivera, we have not, and we actually have reached out to former Councilor Hildemeyer as well to see if she had any recollection of it. So we're still working on it, but we haven't been able to identify any language. We've searched about 15 phrases that we think would be in that legislation, but once we hear back from her, I'll let you know. We did reach out to her though, asking if she had any memory of the legislation that would have been approved.
And did she confirm that there had been, that she recalled something like that, or just?
I'll have to double check. The first time I didn't get through, and I believe Geraldine was going to follow up. So.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Counselor. Others? I would just offer the comment. We know that this is not something that is done without consideration, and we know it's some ways a hard imposition on folks who love to go on those trails. We also know that we've seen active fires that our department has had to respond to as recently as yesterday, and that these are very serious drought conditions, and it doesn't take much to turn a small fire into a significant community danger. And it is a tough hardship on folks, but at the same time, it's for the community good. And I think we know we're in extremely dangerous conditions. So much so, we're having a visit from the President of the United States on Saturday to review the tragic fires that we're still dealing with, because it does represent such a threat to so many people in our community. And so in the short term, taking some extraordinary measures that are not easy to do, represents a little bit of a sacrifice from individuals for the larger good of the community. And I hope people will understand that, and I hope they will continue to respect this decision and make the best of it so that we're keeping the city of Santa Fe safe from any fires that could potentially break out. It doesn't take much to have things get out of control. Chief Moya, you were nodding in the back for a minute. I thought if you want to come up to the microphone, I think it'd be useful to for you to share what you've been seeing in the way of fires that your crew has been dealing with, perhaps off the radar screen, but with some constant sense of urgency to keep fires from getting out of control. What can you tell us about what we're witnessing right now, and what would you encourage the residents of Santa Fe to do to keep our community safe from fire?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yes, so we actually brought a brush truck home early from the Hermit's Peak and Calf Canyon fire due to the extreme danger we were in. Over the last 2 weeks, I had one of my battalion chiefs run the numbers. We've had 22 small brush fires throughout the city. So it is not something that is not being noticed by me, especially, knowing with all the dry conditions. So it is very serious, and at any point it could change. So we have seen a big uptick, and we don't really know why, but we've been seeing an uptick of brush fires throughout the city. And most of the times it's not when everybody's awake. So 2, 3 in the morning when everybody's asleep is when these things are happening. So we are jumping on them as quickly as possible. We have brought everybody home from the Hermit's Peak Calf Canyon fire as of Sunday, except for our type 3. So our type 3 engine with our wildland division is still up there, but I brought everybody home because due to the extreme circumstances, I feel like at this point, we need to keep our guys here, and we need to keep everybody ready at this time to protect us at this time. So we helped everybody else, but I've moved everybody home to say, at this time, we need to worry about us, and we need to make sure that our neighbors are safe and our community is safe. So that is the big picture and what I've seen over the last 2 weeks.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councilor Lee Garcia?
Mr. Mayor, Chief Moya, can you tell us what has been the cause of some of these fires? I mean,
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Garcia, so a few are still under investigation. I do have one that was started by abandoned car. So they were on there off Jaguar. They just arrived. There was a fully involved car, and then the car involved other things. So a lot of that is that. We had one on a trail about 2.5 weeks ago that really scared me. It was going up on High Park, and we saw lighter. So we don't know the outcome of that either. But so that is kind of what we're seeing. Some research that my wife did that was kind of interesting is some of these people are seeing what these fires are impacting and all the news they're getting. And some people think they want those things. So sometimes it's mental for these people. If they're getting all the attention, why can't we get some of the attention? So that's something that I've noticed that we need to be cognizant of, is making sure jumping on them. So those are a few are still in investigation. I can't really share much with my fire investigation team, are still working on those, but that is kind of what we've been seeing. So some have been caused by man-made, somebody doing things they're not supposed to do. We did have a firework. One was a firework already. So, but we've been able to get on them. So nothing's been over. The biggest fire we had was the one on Saturday out that we assisted the Santa Fe County Fire Department on I-25. That's probably been the biggest fire over the last 3 weeks, but that one could have got really out of control, and we sent the world to it. So we were able to send 4 trucks, and the county probably sent, I counted 25 there, I think. So we are aware of the extreme circumstances, and we are sending everything possible to get these out as fast as possible.
thank you. And yeah, it's no secret, it's very dry out there. So, everybody doing their due diligence and making sure that they are not parking in grass that's high or things of that nature. And if they see something, definitely make a point to reach out. And
Thank you, Councilor Garcia.
thank you.
Councilor Casson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Chief Moya. I believe this is probably a joint question for both of our chiefs that are here. You mentioned fireworks, and we are closing in on the 4th of July. As we know, we do have ordinances that are restricting fireworks. And as we know, that does not necessarily work for every individual in our community for them to not be setting off fireworks. Given the extreme danger that we have this year, what additional outreach are we doing, prevention, and then also when we inevitably do have a number of fireworks going off on the 4th and the surrounding days, how are we going to be addressing that differently this year?
Mayor Weber, Councilor Cassett. Yeah, so going to answer it in a couple of different ways. What we've done in the past and what we will be doing again is a pretty comprehensive public awareness, social media blitz. Both our DC Valdez is our social media guy for the PD. The fire department also has a strong social media presence. So we'll be posting in unison with each other and sharing each other's posts. Also, what we've done in the past, which we will do again, is have our officers on overtime assignments working with fire to be proactive and monitor the fireworks calls to intervene, issue citations, confiscate the goods, so to speak, and hopefully educate folks on what they shouldn't be doing.
Thank you, Chief. I know it's always been a really challenging issue. And this year it's absolutely a bit more nerve-wracking. I know that PD is on overtime and they are, doing patrols. Will fire also be, I know, we'll have our event, and then will there be the fire department actually moving around doing patrols as well, looking for fires as well as for individuals who are setting off fireworks?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Cassett, yes. So we'll have extra people. Probably every truck that I own or the city owns will be out and about doing things. So those are our two big events, just like Chief Joy says, fire 4th of July for us and the Zobra. So we'll probably staff every truck we have available. We'll have dedicated units to the 4th of July event, and then all our other units will be patrolling. They will not be allowed in the station. They'll continue to patrol. They'll continue to be out in their districts monitoring, and anything that comes up. If we're busy, then they will first respond and they will try to help and educate the residents of those fireworks concerns.
Okay, thank you. I do appreciate that. And for members of the community, when they are inevitably going to be calling the RECC, to report fireworks that are going off at midnight, what is the information that is most helpful for you when you are, when RECC is getting those calls?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Cassett, the key would be address. If they can be, that is the most best way. If they just tell us it's in the area, when we can go out, but if they're already done shooting those fireworks, we're just going to be chasing our tails. So, but if they can say it's coming from, this 2 or 3 addresses, I don't want to get too close but that would be the key. If they just say, I'm looking in my backyard and I'm seeing fireworks, and we'll go look, but it's harder for us to find them. If you can give us more specifics, that would be the best for people to give us, is where exactly, the location is, or an address would be the best, would just be, it's at this address and we'll be there as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you. And then I apologize, I know I'm a little off topic, but speaking of tails, does Animal Patrol have overtime hours on the 4th of July? I know last year there was fireworks going off and they were keeping me up, and I decided to just try to go find them. Instead, I found a dog that had escaped from, a few blocks away, and I managed to get into my car. So I am curious, the Animal Patrol, could we get Animal Patrol out on the 4th, knowing that a lot of dogs escape and this is a pretty high risk time for them?
Mayor Weber, Councilor Cassett, it's certainly a possibility. We haven't ruled anything like that out. Generally speaking, what we'll do is we have animal services will be operating during their normal working hours. And then they have an on-call rotation. So depending on the nature of the call, officers would go check out the call, and then they would consult with the supervisor on duty to approve that animal services come out and intervene and take the call. But for a special event like this, I don't think we've done it in the past, but it's certainly, we can do it as a pilot program and see how it works out.
Yeah, I'd be really interested in looking into that. So I know we're off topic there, so I'll reach out to you offline on that one. So
Sure.
thank you.
I like experiments, so we can do it as an experiment and see how it works out.
Thanks, Chief. All right, I will yield the floor. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Rivera and then Counselor Romero Worth.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, do we know if the state has already banned fireworks?
Which chief?
Whichever one has an answer.
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Rivera, I know each individual county is doing that. I don't know if the state has done it yet.
All right. And do we know, has anyone spoken to the tribes all around us about not allowing the setup of tents, which has always been the issue when we ban fireworks, that people can still go and buy whatever they want?
That I don't know either, Councilor Rivera. I know down there in Torrance County, I saw it the other day, Moriarty banned their fireworks, but they still have all the fireworks stands in them. So they banned them in their city, but they're still gonna sell them to everybody else. So we're trying to limit them here, and City Attorney McSherry can help me with some of these because we've been going back and forth about the fireworks.
I think the city attorney may be able to leap in here.
Mayor Weber, councilors, Chief Moya, I just wanted to add a couple things. The governor's office has asked local governments to put in place these short-term prohibitions because the statute is very specific to the local governments to doing this. They haven't created a state mechanism, it seems like. So that's probably why we haven't seen that. The statute on the fireworks prohibitions is very convoluted. We're going to be probably talking to counselors about maybe seeing if we want to up our regulation, because it looks like we probably have the opportunity to do so. That statute's been amended a number of times, so we have the way we've been doing it, but there might be some other ways we can look at doing it, and maybe also not having to re-up as often as we have this year. We can maybe set in some criteria and do it on a more ongoing basis, possibly. So that's something we want to talk to the council about. We just started talking to the fire department about it this week. But that's probably why we haven't seen a state prohibition.
Okay. And then maybe Mr. City Manager, if you can reach out to our neighbors to the north and south, probably, that allow the tents to be set up, and ask them. Typically, they usually respond in a positive way, but if we can just reach out to them and see if they'd be willing to do so, that would be great.
Mayor Weber, Councilor Rivera, we're happy to do that.
Good suggestion. Thank you. Councilwoman Romero Worth.
Thank you, Mayor. Is my sound okay? Apparently I boomed in the last time.
Loud and very clear.
All right, terrific. Chief Moya, I got an email from a constituent very upset that we were going to do a fireworks show this year and trying to understand why we wouldn't set an example and not do one, given that we're closing trails and the fire danger is so acute. And I'm just wondering if you can, I assume we're doing that. And then if you could just kind of explain kind of the philosophy about why we do that, even given the conditions that we have.
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Romero Worth, the big reasons why we do it is I think it would be 10 times worse if we didn't have anything because everybody would like to do their own. So me as the chief, and I talked to my staff, and we thought that it is best if we do something and let the people come watch us do it professionally. And we have the equipment to put all the fires out and not have, if we don't do anything, people are going to do it themselves. And then we're going to be running around 4 times more trying to put out fires, put out people doing illegal fireworks. So our thought is, let's put everybody in one place. I will put all the resources there to make sure it is as safest as possible. We can always shut it down. If the wind conditions are wrong, if we have a big lightning storm coming in or a big thunderstorm coming in, we can shut it down and say it is not happening. So it can be shut down a minute before it goes off. So those are the big reasons we have decided to move forward with the 4th of July event, is to give some people a place to go and say, don't do it yourselves, come to us and we will do it, and we will do it professionally, and we will take care of it, and we'll make it as safe as possible.
Thank you. And Mayor, Chief Moya, do you have a location? Is it going to be the same place as it normally is? And can you talk a little bit about that location and why it lends itself to being a highly controlled environment to be doing this? I mean, you're not going to be you're not doing this over where we do Zozobra. It's a different location, correct? And maybe you could just speak to that a little bit.
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Merworth, yes, and maybe at my next council meeting, I will bring up the permit. So I have the permit currently in my inbox. They have showed me where the location exactly is. It is right near the park in the mall parking lot. There's Arroyo to the right of it, so it is a big dead area. We have 3 residents that we patrol their properties. That is the only properties on that have it. So it is a very controlled area. It is a very big arroyo that do it. They have a very clear area of where these fireworks will land. The big reason we would shut them down is if the wind is too high, those mortars could go further down, and that is a concern we would have. But the location that the fireworks people and the Kiwanis Club have sent me, it is in a very safe location. It is right in the parking lot of the park there at the mall. That is where they'll be lighting them off, and they have a 300-foot radius. They tell us exactly where with the wind conditions, if there's not a lot of wind conditions, where these things will fall and how safe we'll be. And we will definitely have enough vehicles there to, if anything starts, to be able to put it out quickly.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, you had your hand up.
Yes, Mayor. I also just wanted to note, in conjunction with everything that PD and Fire is doing, we're also working on joint messaging with our departments and with Kiwanis. So starting Friday, messaging will go out about pet safety, fireworks, discouraging people to use their own personal fireworks to enjoy the large display we have. And then we also are having a community meeting in conjunction with PD on Tuesday night, and the local Nava Ade community, as well as Councilor Casa and Councilor Chavez, just for awareness in that area.
Yes, Counselor.
Follow-up question on that meeting. Can we make sure, I know that Nava Ade, because they are an HOA and so they're organized, but there's also Mimbres Lane is highly impacted as well. Will those residents be?
Yes.
informed? Great.
Those residents, actually, I did speak with several residents today about that in advance of also setting up the meeting. And then we did have one individual who would not be able to attend that lives on Mimbres Lane, but she did already provide her comments, and those were shared with the team that I'm working with on PD. So yes, we're excited. We will start again asking everybody to really not use local fireworks, be aware of pet safety, firework safety, and releasing information about what fireworks are considered safe for use. And that's in conjunction with the fire and PD. So hopefully, and Kiwanis will be at the meeting with us on Tuesday night.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate your collaboration with the neighborhood on this, because they are highly impacted. And it is important that we have a community celebration for 4th of July, of course, but it is challenging for them. So I know that cooperation with the city and with Kiwanis is very much appreciated by them.
Yes, and we will have Captain Tapia and Lieutenant Gonzalez with us on that to kind of walk through what that looks like for the neighborhoods that night.
Counselor Rivera, you have a question.
Thank you, Mayor. Not a question, but a comment. Just when we're giving out information, if we can give information on how to utilize the fireworks that are allowable. I know sparklers are part of that, but I had some neighbors a couple of years ago that would light the sparklers up and then throw the sparklers in the air. So you never know where those are going to go. But how to safely utilize the fireworks that are legal.
Absolutely. We're actually going to work with some of our fire department members to talk about how to safely use fireworks, and we'll be putting out another video. We did last year, and we'll do another one this year.
Great. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Thank you both. Appreciate you. And Madam Clerk, can you call the roll?
Yes, Mayor. Councilwoman Villarreal.
Yes.
Councilor Cassett.
Yes.
Councilor Chavez.
Yes.
Councilor Lee Garcia.
Yes.
Councilor Michael Garcia.
Yes.
Councilor Lindell.
Yes.
Councilor Rivera. Councilor Merworth.
Yes.
Mayor Weber.
Yes.
Mayor, can I make one more note on this?
Yes, please.
I also just want to alert the council that they'll probably be getting a hold from me for June 20th. for a special meeting, it's the date that we would have to reestablish this emergency resolution if we were to continue, if we wanted to continue extending this. So
Thank you.
just everyone be on the lookout for that.
Thank you. Next item, Madam Clerk.
The next item is matters from the city manager.
Mr. Blair, you have the floor.
Mr. Mayor, councilors, good evening. Happy Pride Month to you. I have a short list today. First, just to mention again, President Biden is scheduled to come to Santa Fe on Saturday. As we understand, the visitor at this point, he will not actually be coming into the city limits itself. He'll be coming to the National Guard. And so we don't anticipate a motorcade shutting down the plaza on Saturday afternoon. So if we learn any more information about any other events around the president's visit, we'll make sure that you all are in the loop about that. I think you've been made aware that we have shut down the potential evacuation site at the GCCC and are back to normal operations there. And so if you have any constituents who have questions about what's happening there, we're back fully open for business and regular programming is going. I will steal the city clerk's thunder a little bit as she may be talking to you about an event, but we are still on track for the BCP, the Bicentennial Pool, to open up on Father's Day weekend. We are looking for city council volunteers to do the first cannonball into the pool. We're very excited about having the pool open, and I think we're going to have some events that weekend that we'll make sure you're aware of and are on your calendar. Beyond that as well, as it is Pride Month, we now have an inclusive pride flag hanging in front of City Hall, which you may not have noticed unless it was windy coming into the office today. But we are planning, I think, tentatively to do some sort of a proclamation and maybe more of a ceremonial raising of the flag when Santa Fe celebrates Pride the last week of June. And we are still doing the Pride Parade on the 25th of June. We've got, I think, a fire truck, a police car, a recycling truck, and we're going to do a little bit more work to make sure that the city has a presence in this parade. And clearly all queer members of city staff and elected leadership and our allies are going to be welcome to join us in the parade route. So that's it for me tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Matters from the city attorney.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Just a couple personnel updates. We will have a new assistant city attorney starting on the 26th or 7th. I will send an announcement about that employee next week. And then the policy analyst is posted. And so please encourage qualified candidates to apply. It will be in the bar bulletin this month as well. A JD is a preferred, or a master's of public policy is preferred, but not required. So we are going to advertise it that way. I'll put a post on my LinkedIn. If other folks want to share it from there, I'd appreciate it. But please direct any candidates you think would be helpful to the policy and legislative office sometime this month. We'll close it early July because the bar bulletin isn't until the last week of June. So those are my two announcements. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, matters from the city clerk.
Mayor, I have a few. I did just want to give out a quick kudos to our mailroom. Last month, we produced almost 53,000 copies for the entire city of Santa Fe, including our senior newsletter, which, fun fact, we actually mail out 700 newsletters in addition to the 2,000 that are handed out by senior staff with Mills. So just would like to say thank you to my mailroom for their continuous work with all of our printing needs. I would also like to invite council members. We have our first movie in the park at Valinda Park this Friday night. The park does open at 5:30. We're encouraging residents to bring blankets and a picnic, hang out. The movie will start at 6:30. We'll have rainbow snow on site and drinks will be sponsored by Coca-Cola. We also have fun family games and we're gonna have some informational booths that night. So come join us at Valinda for Sing 2. The next item is next Friday. We will have a ribbon cutting at 5:30 at Regal to celebrate the new playground equipment, followed by another movie in the park. We're going to be watching Angels in the Outfield. So everyone is encouraged to wear their favorite baseball gear for that movie. And I will take a really quick side note to say good luck to both of my sons. They're playing in their first game of the tournament right now, and I could not be there, but I've heard my oldest son is pitching a no-hitter right now. So pretty exciting times on that, and pretty proud of them. So anyways, I also want to note that we are continuing with redistricting. We do have another in-person meeting on June 14th at GCCC, as well as a meeting on June 28th at the Southside Library. We will have an information booth at our Movie in the Parks for this, and all of the maps are available on our website. If you go to santafenm.gov, it's linked right from the homepage. So quick follow-up to City Manager Blair's announcement. We are reopening Bicentennial Pool. The part I'm more excited about is the pizza and pool party on July 2nd, as well as the fire truck spray down with the kids and handouts. So more information will be coming on that. I do believe Councilor Garcia volunteered, Michael Garcia, to do the first cannonball into the pool. So we'll just have to follow up on that. And then, as I noted, you will receive an invite from me for a hold for a special meeting on June 20th. And we're hoping to do that in conjunction with a celebration event kicking off Pride Week. So we're really excited about that. And then we'll be sending out a citywide email for anyone interested in participating in the parade, including counselors. We also will have some fun handouts for beads, sunglasses, and some Show Your Pride Fridays starting this Friday. So we'll be distributing information on that. And as quickly noted, we will start our firework campaign on Friday with education for the public. And again, discouraging use of fireworks and also encouraging safe use of fireworks when we need to do so. So anyways, that's about what I have.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good luck with the no-hitter. Communications from the governing body. Let's start with Councilor Lee Garcia, sir.
I don't have anything tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Cassett.
I don't think I have anything tonight either. Thank you.
Councilor Lindell.
I do want to say Happy Pride Month to everyone. Some of us are kind of loud and proud here for a lot of decades. But I also want to say that the rights, the hard-fought rights of LGBTQ people are under assault in this country. We have 325 active pieces of legislation in our states to roll back the rights for LGBTQ people. I would really ask for Santa Fe to continue to stand proud with all people. This has always been a wonderful community and welcoming. And these hard-fought rights cannot be taken for granted. So please come to Pride, have a great time, and don't forget why we have to have that Pride Month and Pride Parade. It's about that we belong and that we deserve to be here. So it's going to be fun. And I look forward to seeing everybody out there and having a great time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilwoman Villarreal, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to first recognize that Juneteenth is right around the corner. That's June 19th, also known as Freedom Day, Liberation Day, and Emancipation Day. It's a federal holiday to commemorate the end of slavery in the United States. And while we know this holiday is about recognizing the end of slavery and past suffering, it also reflects on the historic and contemporary stains we still carry with us in our country, where we continue to see daily occurrences of injustice, racial profiling, mass shootings, and state-sanctioned violence. It's also a day to recognize the historic and current contributions of our Black and African American community in Santa Fe and New Mexico, who live, work, and play alongside us and are part of the fabric that makes us Santa Feans and New Mexicans. The Juneteenth celebration will be on the plaza on Sunday, June 19th, thanks to Earthseed Black Arts Alliance, who's the organizer. There'll be speakers and music, poets, and community. So please come out and support. And hopefully next year, they will be able to incorporate vendors into the mix for the celebration. I would also like to recognize the importance of Pride Month as well, and lifting up the LGBTQIA and Two-Spirit community, and honoring our sisters and brothers and trans and gender nonconforming relatives to feel that they are safe and they have a space for themselves to be treated equitably and to be able to love who they love. We also know, as Councillor Lindell was indicating, that we still have a lot of work to do to protect the lives of trans children, people, families, especially people of color who've been criminalized, marginalized, and physically attacked for wanting to be themselves. And so I'll be standing in solidarity and attending Pride and the celebrations to continue to be an ally and a fighter for justice for our LGBTQI plus Two-Spirit. And just wanted to thank all of those that have contributed to the rights in Santa Fe and everybody that continues to fight for those rights that shouldn't be rights, they're human rights. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilor Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just as well want to say happy Pride Month to everybody. Look forward to all the great events that are being planned this month. I also want to give a quick shout out to a group that was here recently in Santa Fe that did a park cleanup at Young Park. It is called the MFUGE group, and I'm going to just read a bit about them. They are a Christian summer camp based out of Lifeway Christian Resources in Nashville, Tennessee. Each week of the summer, churches bring their students to MFUGE to experience both camp and a mission trip in the same week. MFUGE began in 1995 on the campus of Palm Beach Atlantic University. So many thanks to them and their group. And they worked with Jesse Benavides in Parks to get Young Park cleaned up. So many thanks to them for those benefits. As well, I'm definitely looking forward to the Regal ribbon cutting. Many thanks to Melissa McDonald and the rest of the team that made that happen. And excited about the movie happening in the park. Bicentennial pool, line me up. I'll be there doing cannonballs all day if you'd like me to. I might have to eat some pizzas before just to make sure I can make some splashes. And just I also want to just give a quick shout out to everybody that's been working. I know there's been lots of collaborative efforts to clean up parks in our community, and especially now that folks are utilizing them. So just everybody, whether they're organized through the new group Friends of Santa Fe Parks or just organically folks in their community getting their parks cleaned up, just many thanks. It's one of those things where it's great to see all of a sudden a park be cleaned up and hey, wow, it's awesome. With that, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Rivera.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to let everyone know that I'll be at the NALEO conference, June 22nd through 25th. And NALEO is the National Association of Latino Elected Officials. So elected officials or appointed officials from all over the country will be meeting up in Chicago for the first time since before the pandemic. And some of the things I'll be talking about are a mental health emergency, the toll of a long-term pandemic, investing in infrastructure that serves everyone, second chances, a better path forward for criminal justice. So a lot of interesting things that they'll be covering, and I look forward to bringing some great information back. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Chavez, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you all hear me okay?
Very clear.
Very good. Well, I wanted to start by thanking the ITT department and the clerk's office for making hybrid happen. I know it wasn't easy. It took a lot of work. But, unfortunately, I can't be there in person today, but I'm still able to be here and represent and be present and participate. And that's very important to me. And it's very important to, I think, our community members. So thank you, those two departments, for putting in the work to make this happen. I appreciate that. I also wanted to thank the clerk's office for the event last Friday. We shared the proclamation declaring Friday, June 3rd, Gun Violence Awareness Day. I wanted to thank all of my colleagues that were there and reached out, which was everyone. Thank you so much for the support. I want to thank Moms Demand Action, Miranda Visfoli, everyone that showed up. I want to thank the parents, the mothers who showed up with their children to say, what can we do? How can we help? I think it was an event that kind of opened everyone's eyes to the number of people who want action. So I just wanted to extend my appreciation to all involved. And City Clerk, you made that happen in 2 days when I had the idea to put it together very quickly and made it more wonderful than what I could have imagined. So thank you. Tomorrow from 10 to 11, there is the tennis court groundbreaking at Herb Martinez. Thank you, Melissa McDonald and her team, for all the amazing things taking place in parks, but in all the other areas in the city, all of the other public spaces. I'm seeing, there's just so much going on. That department takes on so much, and we're seeing things being accomplished, which I think is so important to our community members. And so I just thank you so much. I'm very grateful. Where I could just tell my constituents, look around, we are putting in the work. And it's not me, they are putting in the work. So thank you so much. And of course, happy Pride. I'm very sad that I will not be at the parade because I will be in Disneyland, but I will be sharing pictures that I am going to be in support from California to everyone that is celebrating this wonderful month, this month of love, what true love really is, which is the freedom to love the way that you just naturally love. And so I am happy Pride Month, super excited for all the events, sad I'll be missing them. But I think that is it, Mayor. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councilor Merrill.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just going to echo some of what's already been said. I really appreciate the hybrid tonight. I would not have been able to attend or participate otherwise. So thank you to everybody who made that happen. Also want to say happy Pride Month. As has been mentioned by several of the councilors, very important that we continue to acknowledge and include and speak in these times about being inclusive and letting people love who they love. So want to echo that. Also want to echo the Regal Park slide. That is a big deal. Thank you, Melissa McDonald, for your work in making that happen. Great example of a problem, and then we were able to respond. Really important piece of the infrastructure of Regal, and so very exciting that that's happening, as well as the opening of Bicentennial Pool. So thank you to everybody who's made that happen, and that's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor. I will weigh in on a couple things. First, happy Pride Month. This is a critically important celebration. As Councilor Lindell mentioned, things that we thought had been settled when it came to fundamental human rights are apparently back up for grabs. And it's important for all of us to stand together and to show our support for all of our residents, all of our people here in Santa Fe, and to stand as a united community for a fundamental human right. And I'm proud to be part of Pride. I think it's going to be a really good celebration this year. To Councilor Rivera's point about going to his event, I think that's a really good example of taking advantage of gatherings where we can learn things and bring back useful information. I know Councilwoman Varela did, as well as Councilor Rivera previously. I just got back from an event the U.S. Conference of Mayors, which was the first one in person in 3 years, I believe. And it was both informational and inspirational. We had a speech from the vice president who talked about these issues that on a national level we had thought were settled and are back up for grabs. Fundamental issues of voting rights, human rights, civil rights, inclusive rights have now become back up for grabs. We had an amazing presentation and breakout session with the Surgeon General, and the issue of mental health was a through line for all of the mayors. We are seeing a time, as everybody has experienced, where the stresses, pressures, the unprecedented level of personal and community trauma has really brought a lot of pain to people. And the Surgeon General, as well as mayors, were calling for action at the local and at the national level to improve our attention to mental health. And if there is a stigma around mental health, we can't afford that stigma. Everyone needs help at some time in their life, and everyone should have access to that help. Of course, the leading subject among the mayors was violence, starting with the mass shootings that were still fresh in everybody's mind. And while we were there, there was another incident in Philadelphia, another one in Tennessee. It just continues to roil and disrupt and disturb people across the country. There was an outstanding presentation on the subject of mass shooting protocol and how to become prepared for something that is becoming just a way too frequent occurrence in communities all across the nation. And we need to take seriously the fact that preparation, it is like being prepared for any kind of a natural disaster. You need to prepare in advance. And so I come back committed to working on our own preparation to not only prevent violence, but in case it happens, to be responsive in a way that meets the needs of our community. There was a great deal of discussion about homelessness, and I was able to share our work on the Built for Zero movement with Roseanne Haggerty, who is the founder of that movement. It was a standing room only meeting of mayors on that subject because it is part of every city's day-to-day existence to try to solve homelessness. Similarly, we got a lot of interest in the Mayors for a Guaranteed Income program. There are something like 50 cities around the country that are now signing up for a guaranteed income experiment pilot project to try to break the cycle of poverty using direct cash payments to people who can put it to work. The mayor of Las Cruces headed a panel that I was on, and when I was done speaking, the mayor said, you know, I wasn't really in favor of the guaranteed income until I heard what Santa Fe is doing. Now I think we need to do this in Las Cruces as well. Perhaps the most delightful part of the event for me was the number of people who came up to me in an unsolicited manner to say how much they love Santa Fe. They don't know me, but they saw my name tag and they saw the name Santa Fe, and you get all of these expressions from other mayors, from people across the country saying, you know, I really love your city. It is the coolest place. And in fact, we just got voted the #1 tourist destination in the country because people love Santa Fe. We are a magical community with a mystique about us that when we're here in our own hometown, maybe we don't recognize it every single day, but when you go to Chicago, I'm sure you'll hear continual admiration that you get to live in this community. And I also have to say, as a shout out to some of our staff people, I had people come up to me and salute our staff. Melissa McDonald was saluted by somebody from the EPA. Charlene Sitton was saluted by a person who's familiar with our technology attached to our solid waste collection process. Neil Denton was praised for our Solarize program. Just people coming up to me, not knowing me, but saying, I know your staff and they do outstanding work. And I don't think many mayors are treated that way at that event. They may get recognition for their being a mayor of a big city, but the staff work is what people were complimenting me on. And I just want to bring that back home of how everybody on this governing body should be aware that time after time, our team gets praise from the best, some of the best places you could imagine. And of course, having the president arrive on Saturday, whether he comes into the city or not, I think it's a demonstration of federal commitment to doing the right thing about all of the communities in northern New Mexico have been so tragically struck by this fire, and the federal government's intention to do the right thing to, whatever it takes, provide support so people get their lives back. So quick report from the front lines of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. Somebody wants to get in the building, it looks like. Yeah, be careful, Kira. Maybe a couple people could go see who's there and what they want. But that's my report from the USCM, and I'm happy to give more details if anybody would like any more information. With that, I think we go to Madam Clerk. I think it'll be taken care of. It's probably somebody who wants to come in and be here for the petitions from the floor. Madam Clerk, what's the next item on our agenda?
Mayor, the next item on our agenda is introductions of legislation.
Okay, so could you read us 15A, and then we'll allow the council members who are introducing the items to speak to it.
Yes, the first item is 15A. It's consideration of a resolution sponsored by Councilwoman Villarreal and Councilor Rivera. It's a resolution supporting the permanent preservation of the Caja del Rio cultural landscape and wildlife area. And our sponsors do have an opportunity to introduce this.
Thank you.
Counselor, please.
Thank you very much. The Caja del Rio is a remarkable 106,885 acres of beautiful landscape that has the most potent combination of cultural history and critical wildlife habitat in the entire country. The density and awe of the petroglyphs and the cultural sites are unmatched. And the wildlife corridor where the Santa Fe and the Rio Grande rivers come together connects critical habitats across the state. The Caja del Rio is also truly a place of cosmic and spiritual connection, and the importance to Pueblo peoples has been important since time immemorial, and the Spanish settlers going back from 13 generations, and now into the future, conservationists, environmentalists, as well as sports people, as well as outdoor enthusiasts and spiritual leaders as well, are connected to the Caja del Rio in many different ways. The best way to honor that connection is for leaders and elected bodies of all neighboring cities and counties, including the city of Santa Fe, as well as Pueblo governments, to formalize our support for permanent, cohesive protection of the unique and special place that must be safeguarded for the enjoyment of future generations. This resolution is calling for our federal leaders to work with our community on permanently protecting the Caja del Rio and promoting responsible stewardship of this incredible landscape. I did want to say this, the Caja del Rio has also had other supports, resolutions that have already passed by the All Pueblo Council of Governors and Santa Fe County. Additionally, this resolution is supported by organizations such as the Native American Fish and Wildlife Society, Hispanics Enjoying Camping and Hunting Outdoors, also known as ECHO, Earth Keepers 360, the National Wildlife Federation, New Mexico Wild, League of Conservation Voters, Nuestra Tierra, Partnership for Responsible Business, and the New Mexico Wildlife Federation, among others. And I'll pass it to my other co-sponsor, and also wanted to mention that Counselor Chavez is also a co-sponsor. She signed on to be a co-sponsor. So thank you.
Councilor Rivera, did you care to comment?
Sure, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem, also acknowledge Counselor Michael Garcia, who's also signed on as a sponsor, but I wanted to read what ECHO has in their statement. And ECHO is Hispanics enjoying camping, hunting, and the outdoors, stands in solidarity with our tribal brothers and sisters during the difficult time and mourns the desecration of the ancient and beautiful petroglyph site near La Cieneguilla in Santa Fe County. While this vandalism violated a tribal cultural site, let us not forget that the area of the Caja del Rio exhibits a convergence of cultures and a history that is special to us all. This terrible act also highlights the importance and urgency of protecting sites that tell an important story of our history and allows us all to stay in touch with who we are and how we got here. The sanctity and spirit of these places allows us to reach into the past and commune with generations past, and if protected and preserved, will allow generations yet unborn to do the same. And I was fortunate enough to walk the petroglyphs with Senator Ben Ray Lujan a few months ago. And it's just so beautiful up there, all the Native American writings. And it was sad to see that, you know, there's somewhere in the back of the property, there's a gun range that is kind of just back there that everyone utilizes. And really protecting the importance of the Caja del Rio is what this is all about. So thank you for time to discuss it. And thank you to Councilwoman Chavez and Councilor Michael Garcia.
Thank you both.
And
Yes,
just one more
Councilwoman
thing. that
Villarreal.
I just got notice that Councilwoman Cassett also signed on as a co-sponsor. So we appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, could you take us to 15B, please?
Yes, Mayor. Item 15B is consideration of a resolution sponsored by Councilor Rivera, Councilor Romero Worth, Councilor Villarreal, and Councilor Cassett. It's a resolution proclaiming severe or extreme drought conditions exist in the city of Santa Fe, imposing fire restrictions July 11th, 2022 to August 9th, 2022. This is banning the sale or use of fireworks within the city of Santa Fe, encouraging residents to prepare a personal wildfire action plan, and encouraging residents to follow the fire department's fire readiness guidelines.
Thank you. Councilor Rivera, your name is first on the list. Do you want to give us a introduction?
Thank you, Mayor. Just the state requires this to be done on a monthly basis. And I remember when we first started, I told the fire department, I said, are we really going to start this now in February? Is it really this dry? And now I'm grateful that they stayed on top of it and that we really did start earlier than later. So I'm not sure how long it's going to continue. I hope much longer, not much longer, but I want to thank Councilor Romero Worth, Councilwoman Villarreal, and Councilwoman Cassett for also signing on to this. It's important resolution to continue.
Thank you. Any of the other sponsors want to speak to this? Councilwoman Villarreal?
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to recognize the additional language that we added about the fire readiness guidelines. And it's really talking about the Ready, Set, Go personal wildfire action plan and how we encourage that, as well as encouraging residents of the city of Santa Fe to follow the fire department's fire readiness guidelines. And I think that was important, not just to me, but there was community members that felt like it was important to state why we need to take action, and we have individual accountability as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Good point. Well made. Any other co-sponsors? If not, Madam Clerk, I think that takes us to item 15C.
You are correct, Mayor. That is an ordinance amending section 21-4.3 SFCC 1987 to change the set out time for residential refuge collection.
And Councilor Rivera.
Thank you, Mayor. Environmental Services Division, Charlene Sitton, has done quite a bit of research to look at how best to collect refuse, and really what's best not only for employees but also for residents themselves. And and what changes we're looking at. So she'll be going to each of the committees. I felt it was important enough to hit all of them so that everyone could ask their questions, and then we'll see what happens after it goes through the committee process. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor. Madam Clerk, I think that takes us to petitions from the floor.
Yes, Mayor, it does. So I will just note that I am on Zoom right now. We don't have anybody in the waiting room, and then we'll go ahead and call for anyone in person right now. So if there are any members of the public that would like to speak during petitions of the floor, please come forward.
And we can provide 2 minutes for a comment from the floor. You have the floor. A little muffled, I'm afraid. Is the button on? Is there a green light there? Okay. Hang on one sec. Now the red circle's on.
Okay.
Please, go ahead.
Okay, and before I begin, okay, I would like to suggest that you put a sign on those doors to tell you to enter by this door that is usually locked. Excuse me for knocking, but I just assumed it was locked since the main doors were also locked. I talk about fire hazards, and I think part of the fireworks is enforcement. It's always been a problem. And I wonder how the city is going to do something different that will allow them to actually respond to the fireworks that occur in town. And then the other thing I think is really important is that you should start at the beginning, which is really in terms of landscaping and how close buildings are. My two neighbors to the north, they both have fences that one is actually, parts of it are 8 feet under very high trees, or big trees, I should say. And if any of that got caught on fire, two houses would definitely go up. It would go not only down the line, but across into both of their yards. And I now have the same neighbor at 1025 who has a too high a fence, too close to my wall. Now they're putting a structure up on the wall. This is a non-conforming structure. It's not supposed to be at lot line. We could do that a long time ago, but not now. It's a fire hazard. It needs to be set back. It's also right next to the studio garage. That also needs to be set back 5 feet. If the city code enforcement would start actually enforcing setbacks, and the neighbor at 1023 built a shed right onto the garage without a permit, of course. And so again, these are hazards that we have. We have an alley that's overgrown. So if one of those properties go on fire, the alley is going to go on fire. And it's this kind of enforcement that if we started at the beginning, we wouldn't just be relying on the fire department to save everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wants to take advantage of petitions from the floor at this time? Okay, Madam Clerk, item 17A.
I actually do.
Oh, you have somebody
someone
zooming
talking
in?
to the- Yes, someone zoomed in. So,
Okay, good. I'm glad you caught.
yes, Miguel Gabaldon.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor and councilors. Just calling in to echo, I think I heard earlier some comments regarding Parks Director Melissa McDonald and her staff. I don't have last names, but we met with Skylar and Scott regarding the tennis court reconstruction project at Herb Martinez Park. And it was a very beneficial meeting to have with those gentlemen regarding the project. And we're looking forward to the end result, which is going to be some improved tennis courts for those to have an opportunity to partake in that activity, as well as future meetings with the neighborhood as Scott and Skylar committed to work with us on dealing with tree mitigations, because some trees had to be removed due to their impacts to the tennis court surface as well as their impact to the water, as they were very water dependent trees. So just a little shout out to Melissa McDonald and her crew there at Parks. And we'll be in touch with them and look forward to working together in the future as we do some improvements at the Herb Martinez Park. Thank you.
Thank you for zooming in. Madam Clerk, anyone else? All right, in that case, we're shifting gears to public comment on bills, but no action at this time. So could you take us to 17A?
Yes, 17A is consideration of a bill sponsored by Mayor Weber and Councilor Lindell. It's an ordinance amending section 23-5.2 SFCC 1987 to specify that major commercial events are not entitled to use city property that is otherwise leased by the city.
Is there anyone who wishes to speak to this from the public? Okay, thank you. Next item, Madam Clerk.
The next item is 17B. It's consideration of a bill sponsored by Mayor Weber, Councilwoman Villarreal, Councilor Lindell, and Councilor Cassett. It's an ordinance amending section 23-6.3 to align designated drinking area buffer requirements with state requirements to require the use of recyclable or compostable alcoholic beverage containers for events on city property and to permit tasting of mixed beverages containing liquor on city property.
Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak to this item? Please come forward and we'll give you 2 minutes to address it. Thank you.
Okay. Stephanie Beninato. I just am always amazed at how much time council spends on alcohol and alcoholic related issues such as, complying with state law. Okay, I get that. But all this other stuff, it's like we have to have events that have alcohol, somehow they're not really events. And I find that attitude a little distressing. And I find it distressing that we don't actually regulate how many alcoholic distributors, and that means restaurants and places that sell retail, and how close they are together, but we regulate cannabis and how close they can be together. And so I don't see the lack of parallel there. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who wishes to speak to this proposed bill? Seeing no other hands from the public at this time, Madam Clerk, item 18A, final action on legislation.
Correct, Mayor. This is final action on legislation. It's consideration of a resolution sponsored by Councilor Rivera, Councilor Romero Worth, Councilwoman Villarreal, Councilor Cassett. It's a resolution proclaiming severe or extreme drought conditions exist in the city of Santa Fe, imposing fire restrictions from June 11th, 2022 to July 10th, 2022. This is banning the sale or use of fireworks within the city of Santa Fe and prohibiting other fire hazard activities.
So this is the final action on this measure. I would entertain a motion.
For approval.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Is there a discussion of this proposed legislation? Madam Clerk?
All right. Councilor Cassett,
Yes.
Councilor Chavez,
Yes.
Councilor Lee Garcia,
Yes.
Councilor Michael Garcia,
Yes.
Councilor Lindell,
Yes.
Councilor Rivera,
Yes.
Councilor Romero Worth,
Yes.
Councilwoman Villarreal,
Yes.
Mayor Weber.
Yes,
Motion has been approved.
thank you. Madam Clerk, I believe that completes the agenda for tonight.
You are correct, Mayor. It does.
Thank you. In that case, at 7:08 PM, we are adjourned.